Thank you for joining me again here on Interesting Questions. This next video comes from Vox. It's a very interesting subject. It's a subject that myself personally am very interested in. It's been a very intriguing mystery that I probably heard about, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 years ago. It's the Dyatlov Pass incident. It's about some student hikers that were hiking to do some kind of research in Russia, and you know, they were all, unfortunately, they all met their demise. It, it's still a mystery to this day. There's a lot of theories behind what actually happened to these student hikers. Um, but we'll get to the video and, you know, leave some comments. You know, if you find this intriguing as I do, please, leave some comments on it. Like the video, subscribe. I could use some subscribers. I really need them uh, in order to continue to make content like this. But without, or share the video too. Please share it with friends and family. And without further ado, um, let's go ahead and we'll get to the video.
This is the last photo taken by a group of experienced Russian hikers the night they disappeared in February 1959, here in the remote Ural Mountains in western Siberia. They were on an advanced winter hiking trip, trekking hundreds of kilometers through frozen wilderness. The photo shows them digging a platform in deep snow to pitch their tent along the slope of Kolotsiako, which translates from the language of the indigenous people of the region, the Mansi, to Dead Mountain. Hours later, the hikers abandoned the tent and all of their equipment in the dark. Weeks later, a search party found the tent, half destroyed and covered in snow. It had been cut open from the inside. Frozen bodies, most of them barefoot and wearing just their sleeping clothes, were found 1,500 meters away. Meaning something drove the group from the tent so fast there wasn't even time to unbutton its entrance or put on the heavy winter gear necessary to survive the conditions outside. It would take another 2 months to locate the rest of the group, all of them dead, their autopsies revealing...
Well, that's crazy. I didn't know it actually took that long. Like I said, I've heard about this story before. I've never seen this particular video, but I didn't know it actually took 2 months for them to actually locate all the bodies of these individuals. But yeah, that's crazy. Like I said, I heard about this story. I want to say 15 to 20 years ago. But yeah, it's crazy.
Severe internal injuries that were hard to explain. Dozens of theories, from alien encounters to government cover-ups, have developed ever since. But basically every theory tries to answer the same question. What made them leave their tent in the first place? The deeper you go into the Dyatlov Pass incident,
like I said, this video comes from Vox. This is actually one of my first interactions with Vox. But the fact that they provided this video, check out their content.
named after the group's leader, 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, the less things tend to add up. So for the sake of this video and explaining what potentially happened that night, let's stick to the most basic facts. This is a rough diagram showing where the bodies of the 9 hikers were found in relation to the abandoned tent, stitched together from hand-drawn maps made during the initial investigation and from descriptions in the case files. The bodies were found in 3 groups. These 6 died of hypothermia, the rest from traumatic internal injuries. These 2 visuals will help piece together a picture of what happened to the group after they left the tent. The search party found footprints leading away from the tent that disappeared into the snow after about 500 meters. Continuing in their direction led to the discovery of the first two bodies, under a cedar tree 1,500 meters downslope from the tent. They were wearing almost nothing and had built a small fire. They froze to death. 3 more were found after that, in a straight line from the tree as if they were trying to make it back to the tent.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre. I don't remember hearing about that evidence, but I didn't know they tried making a fire after they had kind of run away. I thought this was like more chaotic than that, but I guess maybe this is new evidence or something. But I just remember this event being very chaotic. So,
which, in minus 30-degree temperatures and without proper clothes, was basically impossible. They also froze to death. The last 4 weren't found until about 2 months later, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine. And this is where the investigation starts to get more confusing, because unlike the rest of the group, 3 of them had experienced severe internal trauma. Dubinina and Zolotaryov had multiple broken ribs, and Thibaut Brignol had a major skull fracture, internal injuries that their autopsy reports determined were fatal. The investigation's forensic expert compared their injuries to the trauma that results from the shockwave of a bomb. But there was more. Zolotaryov and Dubinina were missing their eyes, and Dubinina was missing her tongue. She, along with Kolevatov, were wearing clothes that were contaminated with excessive amounts of radioactive substances. In spite of many unanswered questions, the lead Soviet investigator, Lev Ivanov, closed the case on May 28, 1959. He concluded that no crime was committed.
One of the theories behind what happened to these people, well, there's multiple theories. One was an avalanche. 2, there was a Yeti. Supposedly there was a photo taken of an abominable snowman, or something. The third one was this was like a government project, kind of gone wrong or something. But yeah, I think when you kind of break this kind of stuff down, trauma and injuries and stuff like that kind of lead more towards that. Yeah, this was probably something that happened. It was probably an experiment or a project or something. Unfortunately, that was probably conducted by other human beings. Unfortunately.
Citing the hikers' lack of external injuries and that all of their valuables were intact, and that the cause of death was overwhelming force, which the hikers were not able to overcome. Since then, dozens of theories have attempted to explain what happened that night in 1959. Murder at the hands of the KGB, a Yeti attack, Soviet military experiments gone wrong, and, of course, UFOs. Most of these theories lack substantial evidence, and some of the more disturbing elements of the case aren't so mysterious after all. The missing soft tissue, Zolotaryov and Dubinina's eyes and Dubinina's tongue, for instance. Their bodies were found in a creek, and Dubinina in particular was found face down. The coroner concluded at the time that these were post-mortem changes due to natural decomposition after months of exposure to running water. But 2 theories in particular, each involving an overwhelming force, offer plausible solutions to the 2 most important questions of the case. What drove the hikers to abandon the tent the way they did? And what could have caused the tremendous internal injuries that some of them sustained? One of these theories has been considered and debunked for years: avalanche. Because this area isn't considered prone to avalanches, and the internal injuries don't match those typically found in avalanche victims, who mostly die from asphyxiation after being swept away by snow.
Yeah, I don't think an avalanche will rip your tongue out of your mouth or your eyeballs. I mean, I can understand, like, you being crushed, or experiencing traumatic internal injury or something from an avalanche could be very plausible, but yeah, your eyeballs missing or your tongue being ripped out or removed in some way seems kind of, yeah, that seems very suspicious to me.
This theory has often been disregarded, but a scientific paper published in January 2021 demonstrates that the hikers could have been hit by a very specific kind of avalanche.
My name is Joan Gaume, and I'm professor at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, and I study snow avalanches.
Joan Gaume and his colleague, geotechnical engineer Alexander Puzrin, developed a model that simulates a rare type of avalanche that could have impacted the tent, a delayed slab avalanche.
The entire slab moves almost instantaneously. As it races down the slope, it breaks into large blocks. At its actual speed, it becomes evident why the wind slab is called the Big Killer.
A slab avalanche occurs when a heavy concentration of snow forms on a less concentrated weak layer.
And when the weak layer fails, this failure will propagate across the slope and eventually release a slab avalanche.
In the Dyatlov case, the trigger for a slab avalanche would have been cutting the slope in order to pitch the tent. But whatever drove them down the mountain occurred hours after that.
We believe that the strong winds brought some additional snow on top of the tent, and this led to progressive accumulation and ultimately the failure of the weak layer, and thus the avalanche, which impacted the tent and the hikers. And we showed that.
But that would not remove your tongue and your eyeballs. Let's face it.
That this type of impact could explain the injuries of some of the hikers.
Trapped under a heavy slab and potentially fearing a second avalanche, they cut their way out of the tent and made for the tree line for protection. This theory, constructed by data-driven simulations and models, shows that a delayed slab avalanche was possible in these conditions and could account for the traumatic injuries within the group, and doesn't attempt to explain anything beyond what drove them from the tent, like why the group was so underdressed.
We say that this is possible, that such a slab avalanche would have injured them the way they were injured. Everything that happened after the avalanche is out of the scope of our paper.
Which, like I said, makes sense, because how do you explain someone's eyeballs or tongue being removed from an avalanche? Like I said, the traumatic internal injuries or something, that's possible, depending on the amount of weight. But I mean, still, broken ribs and stuff like that's kind of hard to determine if someone was just laying there and snow fell on them.
It's not difficult to die on Kolatsiaker, on the dead mountain.
Richard Holmgren is a Swedish archaeologist who led an expedition that retraced the steps of the Dyatlov group in 2019. His group has a different explanation for how these injuries occurred.
The goal was to go there exactly on the same time, and we wanted to put the tent there exactly the same night. We thought that this might help us to understand their situation.
And after experiencing the severe weather of the region, his group came to one main conclusion.
In my view, the katabatic scenario is the only theory that would explain all the steps.
A katabatic wind is a powerful falling wind that travels down a mountain slope, quickly gaining speed under the force of gravity, and can create hurricane-like conditions without warning.
In a katabatic scenario, it goes very fast from strong winds to uncontrollable strong winds. It can change dramatically in seconds. It doesn't take any time.
If this scenario hit the Dyatlov hikers,
But would that remove your eyeballs and your tongue? I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna say no. But I mean, what do I really know? I don't really know anything about. I mean, I've experienced situations where I've been in very high winds, but I can't imagine a wind powerful enough to remove my eyeballs and my tongue. Maybe my eyeballs, but I don't know about my tongue.
the canvas tent would be at risk of being torn apart and would need to be evacuated immediately.
It's a matter of seconds, so the natural procedure to do in this case would be to cut yourself out very quickly.
And with temperatures around minus 30 degrees Celsius, their equipment would have been frozen stiff.
I know myself, just putting on one boot in these circumstances takes 3 to 4 minutes, one boot.
In the katabatic wind scenario, no one in the Dyatlov group is seriously injured at the tent. And these hypothermia deaths are explained the same way. The injuries happen in the ravine where the bodies were found. Remember, these bodies were found buried under around 4 meters of snow. They may have dug themselves a snow den for shelter that collapsed and crushed them.
The compressed chests were caused when the heavy snow collapsed over them, and it got heavier during the spring, during thawing.
The injuries could even be post-mortem. By the time the bodies were found, they had been decomposing under a crushing snowpack for months.
But wouldn't the bodies be preserved? I mean, by the cold. I'm speculating here, but when you're putting in a morgue, you put a dead body in a morgue. You're putting it under a very cold conditions, so the body doesn't decompose. So why would there be decomposition with these bodies if they were under snow like that? I mean, I'm confused by that. Me personally, I'm saying that doesn't make much sense to me. But leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
On a freezing cold night in February 1959, 9 experienced hikers dug a platform into a slope to pitch their tent. Hours later, something happened that suddenly drove them into unsurvivable cold without proper clothes. A slab avalanche or katabatic wind are just 2 of many theories, and they actually have a lot of crossover. The slab avalanche theory needs katabatic wind to explain the snow transfer from the top of the slope. And the collapsed snow den in the katabatic theory is explained by a soft snow layer, the shelter they dug, buckling under a heavy slab. Both give compelling reasons for the Dyatlov group to abandon their tent, and offer a plausible explanation for the mysterious injuries. Ultimately though, since there were no survivors, trying to account for why the hikers did the things they did ends up raising more questions than answers.
This is one of the most mysterious parts of the Dyatlov Pass incident. The behavior of the hikers after the incident, after what happened during this night, is probably the thing that will never be explained.
I guess you could say the bottom line is that they panic. Obviously, they panicked, But yeah, like I said, I've heard a lot of theories behind this incident. This one kind of wants to give you an explanation as to, to explain like what happened. But I've heard other, like they said, explosion, chest compression, and stuff like that. I've actually heard that, there was experiments kind of going on around this area, that the Russian government was conducting experiments. Aliens is another explanation, Yetis, whatever. But yeah, it still remains a mystery, in my opinion. It just I think there's some things that really can't be explained with it. The prime example is, the bodies were decomposed. Well, they're on ice. There's not much decomposition when a body is on ice. It does not decompose almost at all. We've literally found bodies. There was it's like a cursed, mummy type thing. I plan on doing a video on that, where they found a body that was under ice that was just, thousands of years old, So, and it was in excellent condition. So the whole body's on ice, but, there's decomposition doesn't resonate with me very well. But, hey, you guys enjoy this video, please like, subscribe, share the video, I really appreciate the support, and, thank you for joining me. Peace.